If you've ever felt like you don't fit in, been left out of things, or felt like you just see the world different than everyone else, then you need to read this poem. Have you ever been upset and left in a flurry with your own thoughts racing only to find yourself retracing steps without paying attention? The finality of death is something we must all grapple with, and losing someone you love drives it home hard. It's officially spooky season. Time for ghosts, goblins, and things that go bump in the night. Hopefully, you'll catch some horror movies while munching on some candy, enjoy a hayride or two, and sip on some apple cider by the fire. All that's great, but no pumpkin season would be complete without a deadly dose of Edgar Allan Poe. Whether this is your first time reading his work or you just want a refresher, here are the top 7 Poe poems for spooky season. There's so many renderings of what death looks like and how it spends its time. You could spend the whole day looking it up online. Poe took his own crack at it in this poem. If you like ghostly underwater cities ruled by death itself on a throne, then this dark Gothic poem is for you. First published as The Doomed City in 1831, and later as The City of Sin, the poem we now know as The City in the Sea is the final version and was published in 1845. The poem appeared in the Southern Literary Messenger, the American Review, and the Broadway Journal, as well as the 1850 collection, The Poets and Poetry of America. This is one of Poe's best early poems. It tells the story of a city in the West ruled by an embodiment of death. In this city, there are domes and spires and kingly halls and Babylon-like walls. The city is in the west because that's where the sun sets and has traditionally been associated with death. At the end of the poem, a void opens up in the city. Then the waves turn red as a sign of hell coming. The ending suggests that the city is more than hell, for hell admires the city. Others think it's suggesting that death may be worse than the devil. The weird setting and its creepy remoteness is a common device of Gothic fiction. This poem is similar to Poe's The Sleeper and The Valley of the Unrest. Poe had been around death for most of his life. Many of his loved ones died of tuberculosis, and it was reflected in much of his poetry. This lingering thought, the tooth that nibbles at the soul, as Emily Dickinson put it, can be described any number of ways. Poe describes it as a giant worm that consumes us all regardless of who we are and what we do. The Conqueror Worm was first published on its own in Graham's Magazine in 1843, but quickly became associated with Poe's short story Ligeia, after Poe added the poem to a revised publication of the story in 1845. In the revised story, the poem is composed by Ligeia and taught to the narrator while she dies. In the poem, an audience of angels drowned in tears watches a play performed by mimes and controlled by vast, formless shapes looming behind the scenes. The mimes chase a phantom which they can never catch, running in circles. Finally, a horrific crawling shape emerges and eats the mimes, complete with gore on the fangs. The final curtain comes down, and a funeral pall signaling an end to the tragedy. Man, whose only hero is the conquering worm. If you've ever felt like you don't fit in, been left out of things, or felt like you just see the world different than everyone else, then you need to read this poem. Considered by many to be an autobiography, the imagery Poe uses conveys those outsider feelings. The iconic line, "And all I've loved alone," is a perfect picture of what you'll get from this dark work. Alone is a 22-line poem originally written in 1829. Poe left it untitled and unpublished in his lifetime. The original manuscript was signed E.A. Poe and dated March 17, 1829. Poe was only 20 years old at the time. It's important to note that the month before he signed the poem, his foster mother had died. Fast forward to September 1875, when the poem was published with its title In Scribner's Monthly, the poem is now often included in anthologies. Poe describes not being as others were from the time he was a child. His interests, passions, and time were spent in ways that were different than other kids. The style of the poem and tone actually make the reader feel Poe's disconnection. His sad mood feels set and unable to break. His feelings of isolation are even found in the things he loves. In the end, he describes a demon, which could have many meanings, but one could be the loneliness itself. Losing a loved one is one of the hardest things any of us have to go through. So many things remind us of them, and the smallest things can trigger memories. Some people believe no one ever really leaves after death, that many of those who have passed are still here in just another form. This poem explores this idea further with Poe's trademark-rich imagery. Spirits of the Dead was first published Visits of the Dead, when it was published in the 1827 collection Tamerlane and Other Poems. The title was changed for the 1829 collection Al Araf, Tamerlane, and Minor Poems. The poem follows a dialogue between a dead speaker and a person visiting his grave. The spirit tells the person that those who one knows in life surround a person in death as well. They are the spirits of the dead. The speaker emphasizes how a departed soul is nothing more than memories. These thoughts occur and pass from the body as one's soul goes to the next place. It's a simple, common process connected to nature, and as simple as dewdrops forming and evaporating. The end of the work joins death and nature to God. The speaker uses the image of a mist upon the hill. It symbolizes the separation between our world and the next, but points to how they exist inside one another. The poem ends with an emphasis on how the world is filled with mysteries. Death is the most important mystery of all. Have you ever been upset and left in a flurry with your own thoughts racing only to find yourself retracing steps without paying attention? Did you find yourself at the scene of an important event of your life as a result? The narrator in this poem does just that, only he's in a creepy dark woods, in October, alone. Ulalume was written in 1847. Much like a few of Poe's other poems, such as The Raven, Annabel Lee, and Lenore, Ulalume focuses on the death of the narrator's love. Poe originally wrote the poem as an elocution piece. Additionally, it alludes to some mythology. The identity of Ulalume herself might be based on one of Poe's love interests. Overall, this is one of Poe's fancier, wordy poems, so be ready. This poem happens on a night in October with gray skies and crispy, decomposing leaves. The narrator is roaming in the woods by a dark lake, having a serious chat with himself. He actually does not realize it's October or where his distracted walking is leading him. He observes the stars as the night fades, commenting on the brightest one, wondering if it knows his cheeks are wet with tears. Dramatic stuff. The narrator is following a star and has a battle within himself, if it's leading him astray or not. He settles himself and then realizes as dawn begins, he's unconsciously walked to the vault of his lost Ulalume on the very night he had buried her a year before. Few things are more hopeful than young love. Sometimes tragedy strikes, though causing deep loss. Those kinds of stories leave us sad with a bittersweet feeling. In this poem, Poe tapped once more into his deep well of loss and wrote a banger of a dark Gothic seaside narrative that will tug on your heartstrings. Written in 1849, Annabel Lee is the last complete poem Poe wrote. It wasn't published until shortly after his death that same year by his rival Rufus Griswold, as part of his obituary in the New York Daily Tribune. Like many of his poems, it explores the theme of the death of a beautiful woman. The narrator of the poem fell in love with Annabel Lee in a kingdom by the sea when they were young. Their love apparently so strong even angels were jealous, and he believes the seraphim caused her death. Even after her death, he still loves her and believes they are eternally connected. He regularly dreams of Annabel Lee and is reminded of her eyes when he looks at the stars. Every night, the narrator lies down by her side in her tomb by the sea. There has been debate over who, if anyone, was the inspiration for Annabel Lee. Though many women have been suggested, Poe's wife Virginia is one of the more likely candidates. The finality of death is something we must all grapple with, and losing someone you love drives it home hard. Just as in some of Poe's other poems, when you're grieving someone, lots of things can trigger you. Grief can completely unravel the human mind, and that's the vibe of this well-known poem. The Raven was published in January 1845 and is often noted for its musicality, language, and supernatural ambience. The narrator tells of an anxious lover who is lamenting the loss of his significant other, Lenore. He's hanging out and moping by the fire inside on a dark December night. There's a tapping noise, and eventually he opens the window and is paid a mysterious visit by a talking raven, who flaps on in and sits on the head of a statue of the goddess Athena. The raven seems to mess with the narrator with its constant repetition of the word nevermore. It refuses to tell him his name or answer any of his questions. It just simply replies, nevermore. At the time of the poem's narration, the raven is sitting on the statue, even casting shadow on the floor, and the poor narrator says his soul will never get out from under it. The poem has lots of folk, mythological, religious, and classical mentions. Poe claimed to have written the poem logically and methodically, with the intention to create a poem that would appeal to both critics and regular folks, as he explained in his 1846 follow-up essay, The Philosophy of Composition. To learn more about the technicalities of the poem, check out our Raven Explained video, and be sure to also watch our Emmy Award-winning short film of the poem as well. Although there are many more poems written by Edgar Allan Poe, these are some great ones to start off your spooky season with a bang. So this Halloween, instead of roaming around dark alleys and cemeteries, start the season off the right way, with the dark and brooding tales written in poetic form by the master of macabre himself. Check the links below for some of our favorite collections.